Here's a number worth knowing: over 96% of the world's top 1 million web servers run Linux. AWS, Google Cloud, Oracle Cloud, DigitalOcean. When you provision a server, you get Linux. When your Node.js app crashes at 3 a.m., it's crashing on Linux. When Jinx forwards a request to your backend, it's happening on Linux. And yet, most developers I've met can navigate their Mac or Windows machine with confidence but feel genuinely lost the moment they SSH into a production server. They know their frameworks, they know their databases, but the operating system underneath is a black box. That's what this module is about. Not Linux trivia. Not an exhaustive reference guide. We're going to build a mental model, a way of thinking about Linux, that makes everything else click. Once you have this model, every strange Linux behavior suddenly makes sense, every weird error message becomes readable, and you stop feeling like you're guessing. Let's start with the single most important insight about Linux. The one that unlocks everything else. Everything in Linux is either a file or a process. Write that down. This is not a simplification, it's the actual design philosophy that Linus Torvalds inherited from Unix and applied rigorously. What does everything is a file actually mean? It means that Linux represents almost every resource as a file entry in the file system. Your keyboard? A file at /dev/input. Your network socket? A file descriptor. Your running processes? Exposed as files in /prop. Even hardware devices like your hard drive are files /dev/sda. Why did Unix designers make this choice? Because it gives you a universal interface. You can use the same tools: read, write, pipe, redirect on files, network connections, hardware, and kernel state. The entire system becomes composable. One mental model, endless power. And the other half, everything is either dormant code sitting on disk, or it's loaded into memory and running as a process. Your Jinx binary sitting in /usr/spin/Jinx is just a file. But when it's running, listening on port 80, handling requests, it's a process. A process is a file that came to life. This one insight, files and processes, is your compass for navigating Linux. Before we go further, let's be precise about what an operating system actually is. Because the OS gets treated as a magic black box, and it doesn't have to be. An operating system does 4 things for your application. First, it manages hardware. Your Node.js app has no idea how to write to a hard drive, it asks the OS, which talks to the hardware on its behalf. Second, it manages memory. The OS carves up RAM and gives each process its own isolated chunk, so one crashing process can't corrupt another. Third, it manages processes, scheduling which code runs on which CPU core and for how long. Fourth, it provides a file system, an organized way to store and retrieve data that persists across reboots. Your app sits on top of all of this. When your Express server calls fs.read file, it's asking the Linux kernel to read bytes from disk. When it opens a network connection, it's asking the kernel to create a socket. When it spawns a child process, it's asking the kernel to fork. Understanding this layer helps you debug mysterious failures. Inuit means the OS couldn't find that file path. Ichis means permissions denied, the OS says no. Dryness means another process is already using that port. These aren't cryptic errors, they're the OS talking to you. You might wonder, why Linux? Why not Windows Server? Why not Mac OS? The answer comes down to 4 concrete advantages that make Linux the overwhelming choice for server infrastructure. First, cost. Linux is free and open source. Running 1,000 virtual machines on AWS costs you compute, but the operating system itself adds 0 licensing cost. Windows Server adds per instance licensing fees that can add up to thousands of dollars per month at scale. Second, stability. Linux servers routinely run for years without a reboot. Not months, years. Windows Server has historically required reboots after updates far more frequently. For servers, every reboot is a risk, a window where your app is down. Third, control. Linux gives you complete visibility and control over what's running on your machine. Nothing is hidden. You can inspect every process, every file, every network connection. With Windows, much of the internals are opaque by design. Fourth, the ecosystem. Every server tool, Docker, Kubernetes, Jinx, PostgreSQL, Redis, was built first and foremost for Linux. They work on Linux best. Support for other operating systems is often an afterthought. This is why, regardless of what operating system you develop on Mac, Windows, WSL, you will deploy to Linux. And understanding Linux is therefore a non-negotiable skill for any engineer who ships software to production. Let's ground this in something concrete. You've just provisioned a fresh Ubuntu server on Oracle Cloud. You run SSH Ubuntu at 203.0.113.42. After a moment, you see a prompt, Ubuntu at my server. What does that tell you? Ubuntu is the username you're logged in as. My server is the host name of the server. The tilde symbol is your current directory. It means your home folder, which is /home/Ubuntu. The $$ symbol tells you that you're logged in as a regular user, not root. If it were a hashtag symbol, you'd be root. Now let's run a few orientation commands. pwd shows you exactly where you are, /home/Ubuntu. ls shows what's in the current directory. huami confirms your username. unamr tells you the Linux kernel version. Uptime tells you how long the server has been running without a reboot. Notice what you're not doing, you're not clicking anything. Everything is text. Commands go in, results come out. This isn't a limitation, it's a feature. Text is scriptable, automatable, loggable, and reproducible. Everything you type can be saved as a script and run again on 100 other servers. The shell is your interface to Linux, and once you're comfortable with it, you'll find it faster and more powerful than any GUI. The three most fundamental commands in Linux are pwd, print working directory, ls, list directory contents, and cd, change directory. If you can navigate, you can explore. pwd tells you where you are right now. It always prints an absolute path, one that starts from the root. /home/ubuntu/myapp/logs means you're in the logs folder, inside the myapp folder, inside the Ubuntu home directory, under /home, which is directly under the file system root. ls lists the contents of your current directory. LSL gives you long format, with permissions, owner, file size, and modification date. LSLA includes hidden files, those whose names start with a dot, like .env. ls/etc lists the contents of /etc without you having to navigate there first. CD changes your directory. CD/var/log takes you directly to /var/log. CD goes up one level. CD or just CD with no arguments takes you back to your home directory. Two special path conventions, a single dot symbol means the current directory. Two dots means the parent directory. So if you're in /home/ubuntu/myapp and you run ls, you'll see the contents of /home/ubuntu. Master these three commands and you can navigate any Linux system confidently. Everything else builds on top of them. Once you can navigate, you need to read and edit files. Three tools cover 90% of what you'll do. cat is the simplest. cat/etc/hostname prints the contents of a file directly to your terminal. It's fast but impractical for long files, everything scrolls by at once. Cat stands for concatenate. Its original purpose was to concatenate multiple files together, but most people use it just to read a file. Less is better for long files. less/var/log/jinx/error.log opens the file in a scrollable viewer. Use the arrow keys to navigate, G to jump to the end, and Q to quit. Less is more useful than cat for anything longer than a screen. Nano is a simple text editor that runs in your terminal. Nano/etc/jinx/sites available/default opens the file for editing. Use Ctrl+X to exit, and it will ask if you want to save. Nano shows a helpful menu at the bottom of the screen with keyboard shortcuts. It's the most beginner-friendly terminal editor. You'll also want to know tailf, which follows a log file in real time, printing new lines as they're written. tailf/var/log/jinx/access.log is invaluable when you're debugging live traffic. These four cat, less, nano, tail are your day-to-day file tools on any Linux server. On a freshly provisioned Ubuntu server, you're typically logged in as a user named Ubuntu or regular user with limited permissions. Many operations, installing software, modifying system configs, opening ports below 1024 require elevated permissions. That's where sudo comes in. Sudo stands for super user do. When you prefix a command with sudo, you're asking the system to run that command as the root user, the super user who has unrestricted access to everything on the system. Sudo apt install Nginx installs Nginx as root. Sudo systemful restart Nginx restarts the Nginx service. Sudo nano/etc/jinx/nginx.conf opens a system config file for editing. Without the sudo prefix, these commands would fail with permission denied. Why not just log in as root directly? Because it's dangerous. As root, a single typo in a command can destroy an entire server. rmrf/, that's a real command that would delete everything. As a regular user with sudo, there's a small friction barrier that catches mistakes. You have to explicitly prefix each dangerous command. Sudo I drops you into a root shell useful for a series of operations that all require root. But most of the time, prefixing individual commands with sudo is the safer practice. Think of root as a master key. You use it only when you genuinely need it, and you're careful while you hold it. Every command you type in a terminal can also live in a file, a shell script. This transforms one-time commands into repeatable, shareable automation. A shell script is just a text file that starts with a shebang line, #bin/bash. This tells the OS which interpreter to use. Below the shebang, you write commands exactly as you would type them, one per line. A simple deployment script might look like this: navigate to the app directory with cd/home/ubuntu/myapp, pull the latest code with git pull, install dependencies with npm install, and restart the app with pm2 restart all. Save that as deploy.sh, make it executable with chmod plus x deploy.sh, and now you can deploy with a single command, /deploy.sh. Shell scripts support variables, conditionals, loops, and functions, making them surprisingly powerful. But the real value is repeatability. You can run the same script on 100 servers. You can put it in a cron job to run automatically. You can trigger it from a CI/CD pipeline. For server administration, shell scripts are the glue that holds everything together. Jinx configs, pm2 startup, certificate renewal, all of it can be automated with scripts. And because scripts are just files, they can be version controlled in Git alongside your application code. You've built the foundation. Before we dive deeper into the file system hierarchy in the next chapter, let's lock in the core mental model. The question: which statement best describes the Linux design philosophy? Option A says Linux is a collection of graphical tools for system administration. Definitely not. Linux was designed from the start as a text-based, command-line system. GUIs are optional additions. Option B says everything in Linux is either a file or a process. This is the correct answer. Hardware, network connections, kernel state, they're all exposed as files. And every running program is a process. This unified model is what makes Linux so composable and powerful. Option C says Linux is only suitable for advanced users with programming experience. Wrong. Millions of non-programmers use Linux daily. It has a learning curve, but it's very learnable. Option D says each application in Linux manages its own hardware directly. Wrong, that would be chaos. The OS kernel acts as the intermediary between applications and hardware. Applications make system calls and the kernel handles the rest. The answer is B. Everything is a file or a process. Carry this mental model into every Linux situation you encounter, and you'll always have a starting point for understanding what's happening. Next up, the file system hierarchy, why/etc/var/home and/proc exist and what they're designed to hold.